Hello, everyone. Today we are joined by Gina Pizzo. Gina is a managing director at Alvarez and Marsal in the Taxand practice. Based out of Houston, Gina has more than 16 years of experience in sales and use tax. She is a member of the restructuring service team. Gina is also the chair of A&M's Women Leadership Connection. Gina graduated from Louisiana State University with a bachelor's degree in marketing and a master's degree in finance. Gina also has a beautiful daughter who has recently graduated from university. Gina, thank you for joining me today.
Thank you, Saeeda. I appreciate the introduction.
So, Gina, tell us a little bit about your journey, how you got here, and perhaps some of the pivotal moments that really shaped your career.
Sure, absolutely. So, as you mentioned, I did both my undergrad and graduate degree at LSU. And then shortly after, like many young adults, I joined a very regional accounting firm. And I stayed there for about 4.5 years. I was working quite a lot of hours and started to recognize that the balance between sort of work and home life was not exactly ideal. I made a decision to move to Houston with the firm in hopes that I could establish a little bit more balance. And then ultimately had a pivotal moment right around the time my daughter was 7, when she continued to ask me why I was always connected to a BlackBerry or a laptop, and really not giving her the attention that she felt like she deserved. And so, as a parent, that was a very pivotal moment, from the standpoint of, wow, I need to really evaluate what my priorities are. And perhaps I need to look for a position that would be a little bit more aligned with what I'm seeking. And I did that. I moved to A&M almost 14 years ago and have been here ever since. And I think what I found at A&M is the balance to enable myself to be both a successful parent and also climb the corporate ladder, to managing director and partner of my practice.
That's wonderful to hear. Look, that's something I think I can certainly relate to, and I know a lot of working mothers out there can relate to. How do you find that balance, the right work-life balance, where you feel like you are doing justice to yourself as a professional and adding value and doing what you are good at, but at the same time, you're there for your family, you're there for your kids, and you're able to really and truly be there for them when they need you. So it's commendable that you've been able to find that balance, especially in the consulting world.
Absolutely. I agree. I couldn't agree more. And that's why I'm so pleased to be at A&M and so thankful for the opportunities that they've provided
Yeah,
me.
absolutely. It's rare to find, but when you find it, it's something to hold on to. Couldn't agree more. So,
Agreed.
Gina, you also mentioned that at a very young age, you were exposed to a lot of diversity. As a young school going kid, you were surrounded by kids from varied different backgrounds, different environments. What was that like? Share some of your experiences with us, please.
Yeah, so I grew up in inner city New Orleans, Louisiana, and many people may not be familiar with that area of the country or the U.S., but essentially, it's quite an impoverished area, and so my school system was about 90% minority. And what that enabled me to see at a very early age is that one, people were being judged by the color of their skin and possibly their backgrounds and socioeconomic classes. And two, I didn't see any difference between them as anything other than my classmates. So at a very early age, I became very involved and conscious of what was going on around me. And I think it shaped me in my later professional career in that I was much more open minded, much more inclusive, much more keen and aware of the difference that diversity brings both to a team environment, whether it be a school team or now, obviously, in a professional setting, a professional team, and how advantageous that can be. So I am thankful that I had those experiences because I think it's quite different that many of my coworkers, for that matter. And I would like to believe that having that upbringing and being exposed to different diversity, ethnicity, religions at a very early age enabled me to sort of overlook some of the unconscious bias that I think a lot of professionals still deal with
Yeah.
today.
Do you think that's one of the reasons that you've been so active in diversity in A&M and the fact that you are the chair of A&M Women's Leadership Connection?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm extremely passionate about the matter because I think at the end of the day, I want to believe that any of my former classmates would have an opportunity at our firm, regardless of their background or their
Yeah.
ethnicity, just based on pure merit. And so I think I was particularly interested in moving the needle from both the D&I perspective, but also a gender parity perspective as well. Just recognizing that overall the number of women in accounting and in consulting is not as high as I believe it should be and doesn't accurately reflect
Yeah.
the value add that women bring to the workforce. So certainly it's been an area of passion, and I'm happy to say that I believe we've been moving the needle over the last 4 years via the work through the WLC and some of the other D&I initiatives at A&M.
Excellent. And do you see that having this higher level of diversity, women in the workforce, has a positive impact on the kind of work we do and is really and truly additive to the firm as a whole? Not just A&M, but the workforce, I should say.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think that statistics prove that, as the number of women increase at the executive level and C suite level, the top line numbers increase as well. And so, I think it's hand in hand. It's been a bit of a battle, but it's a marathon and not a sprint, right? And we're getting there. I think we're doing enough to create visibility. And I think, quite frankly, the market is demanding that from us at this point. They're wanting to see their third parties put forth a diverse workforce that includes different ethnicities and different genders. And quite frankly, we're potentially losing out on opportunities to the extent we don't conform to those requirements. So it's a business case. It's also the right thing to do, and I think we're meeting in the middle somewhere. And I'm hopeful that that continues.
Absolutely. And look, we see that locally as well, right? We see a lot of our clients when they ask us to come in and to have conversations with them, they ultimately say, we want to see teams that reflect our principles of diversity and
Yeah.
inclusion. And they ask us as A&M, what are your policies around this? How are you tackling this? And how are you making sure this is front and center for you? So absolutely agree. I think this is a very, very important part of just making sure that frankly, our clients, but also the firm gets the best of all worlds and has a truly diverse and representative workforce. So thank you. You focus a lot on sales and use tax. Can you tell us a little bit about what exactly that entails?
Sure. Sure. So basically, sales and use tax is a transaction based
Yeah.
tax that most companies face, right? So if you think about it in general terms, if I go buy a shirt in the US, there's typically a sales tax associated with it. Most tangible items have a sales
Mm.
tax. What we specialize in, specifically being in the Houston market, is the energy space. We do work with other diverse manufacturers, and quite frankly, given the status of the energy market, we're trying to diversify even more. But ultimately, what we do is we help these companies minimize their tax exposure and maximize potential refunds based on the statutes in the respective jurisdictions. So if we think about it again on a basic level, let's just take an E&P
Mm.
operator in Texas. They may have $1 billion of capital spend because they are constructing a new natural gas facility, central processing facility, and the like. How can we help
Mm.
them? What we can do is we can evaluate on the front end the
Mm.
planning. We can assess the categories of spend, and then we can determine whether there are any available exemptions applicable to them to help minimize those taxes. On the flip side, we also get very heavily involved on the controversy piece. So, to the extent a state taxing authority comes out and audits a respective
Mm.
company, we also help them mitigate that and manage that audit process to do the same thing. Again, maximize refunds, minimize exposure.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. How has the pandemic impacted this and the work that you do in the US?
So I think we had a bit of a double whammy, if I'm being honest, right? Because energy is great until it's not, right? And right now in the US, actually pre-COVID, we started to see a significant decline in the oil
Right.
prices. And that really has an impact all along the energy value chain. And so while we serve basically everybody, we serve upstream, midstream, downstream, and utility, and well services, we were really starting to see a significant impact
Mm,
everywhere. And so, how did that impact us as a practice? Well, when 95% of your clients are in the energy space, you quickly have to figure out a way to pivot and reinvent the wheel. Fortunately for us, A&M is leveraged enough on the restructuring side that while our clients were struggling in a distressed situation, our NACR groups were actually getting heavily involved with the restructuring. So what we did strategically is we positioned ourselves with big A&M and NACR, and we joined the restructuring tax service team to better align with, okay, how can we come in on the front end and do those same services but in a bankruptcy format. So we educated ourselves on the bankruptcy law. We got integrated with the NACR partners, and we were able to bring additional value add from a tax perspective to the forefront. That was one way that we pivoted when our clients didn't necessarily have the budget to pay us because they were going through bankruptcies.
okay.
The other thing that I think that we did is we had to replace external
Mm,
marketing, right? There was no more in-person lunches. There was no more business development opportunities from industry networking events or speaking
right.
events. So we had to get creative in that way. And so there's a lot of Zoom calls, a lot of Teams
Mhm.
calls, but it's also a time to reflect on how to improve your individual
Mm,
brand, right? What can I do now to improve my brand? So, whether that's increased social media, whether that's putting out thought leadership and content that resonates with the target audience that you're trying to attack, all of those things became very front and center for us. We had to find a way to reach these people because we couldn't do it directly
yeah,
anymore.
yeah. No, that makes perfect sense. And look, I think what you say resonates so much, right? A lot of knowledge-based economies are moving very much towards a focus on the individual as opposed to the brand. And that has been exasperated because of the pandemic. And what you're doing in terms of being more active and driving the thought leadership, I can only say that how much that would help in. I can only imagine how much that would help in raising the conversation and making sure that you're able to reach out and connect with the people that you would like to. So absolutely makes a lot of sense. One of the other things that we talked about a while ago is you said that you see a lot of diversity in the general talent pool that comes into in organizations on the accounting side. However, as time goes on, there is generally a much bigger loss and a much more of an attrition from that diverse pool, as opposed to, let's say, the other side. And you really start seeing the loss in diversity as you go up the chain into the more managerial and higher level roles. Is this something, what do you think drives this?
Yeah, it's a great point, and quite frankly, it's one that we've been trying to solve for with the WLC for a number of years. And I think to your point, when we look at the entry pool, there's probably 50-50% in terms of women, even more possibly at the entry level that are coming in to the accounting professions. I think we see a big taper off from the management side, probably because that's around the time that people start to develop families, start to
Mm,
evaluate, to our point earlier, how they're going to balance both being a parent and being a professional. And then perhaps don't have the foundation within the firm and possibly externally to support a successive career
mm,
path, a successful career path, excuse me. And one of the things that we're really focused heavily on with the WLC is providing that support, right? Our main focus is not just to recruit, but to retain and advance. And that's really where we focus our efforts heavily, is on that middle
Yeah.
group. What do we do to ensure that those people stay? I think it's increased mentorship opportunities. I think it's identifying sponsors and advocates early on, whether they be male or
Yeah.
female, within their career. It's aligning them with individuals who have their best interest at heart, and can visualize what their future career path
Yeah.
is, and making sure they have touch points frequently and feedback regularly to ensure that they can be successful. But first and foremost, Saeeda, it's seeing other people that look like themselves. So not just from the women, but we also see this on the D&I
Yeah.
side. It's a very isolating situation when you don't see anyone that looks like yourself climbing up the ladder. So I think, to the extent A&M continues down this path of focused efforts on D&I, on gender diversity, on all of these things, we'll start to see this even out. At least that's my hope. We're moving in the right direction. We're not there yet, but we're certainly making positive steps.
Well, that's very good to hear. And look, I think what you mentioned about mentorship, that is so important. And frankly, I think it's something that a lot of younger people, especially a lot of, I would say, women, don't do a lot of. We don't actively put our hand up and say, hey, I would like to have
Yep.
a mentor, and I would proactively like to engage with my mentor and help shape my career path and push myself forward. It's something we tend to be a bit shy about. And I think to whatever degree we can put in some kind of a structural a way where we can make sure this is happening more and more, I think we will absolutely see a lot of benefits from this. Have there been certain things that you've seen work better than others? Perhaps some tips or best practices that you would like to share on that with the rest of us?
Sure. Actually, I have. I think the one tip that has resonated the best with me is the forced mentorship
Mm,
programs tend to not be successful. Where we've seen increased success are having smaller circles, what we like to call mentorship circles, very similar to like a lean in type
yeah.
approach. What we've done specifically in Houston, and I know some of the other offices have replicated it, is we've taken a number of senior level
Mm,
people, ask them whether they're interested in being a mentor. Assuming they agree, we then put together a profile, high level.
mm,
What church might you attend? Do you have kids? What do you like to do in your spare time? We put that all in a format, and then we allow the pool of mentees to try to connect with someone that they have something in common with. We've seen that be incredibly successful, because all of a sudden now you go from not knowing this individual or this leader to, oh, wow, they rescue the types of dogs that I love, or they're an avid runner or skier and I have an interest in that. So you're connecting now on a personal level, and it leads to additional discussions surrounding career advice and the like. And so we've had great success in Houston testing out the mentorship circles, and we continue to implement and to sort of
mm,
tweak as we go to find best practices. But what I will reiterate is that we have not had a lot of success when we say this SBU is going to have a mentorship program and you're going to be assigned to this person, right? Because it's
yeah.
unnatural, and it doesn't tend to develop the way that we would envision it
Yeah.
ideally.
That makes a lot of sense. Excellent. So, Gina, as we said, you have a young daughter who has very recently finished her undergraduate studies. What advice would you give to your daughter and to other younger women and men that are starting out their career path and have high ambitions?
So you are correct. I have a 21-year-old daughter, and she just recently finished her undergrad degree. She's currently getting a second degree in nursing school. And I think my advice to her and anyone else is, first and foremost, be your authentic self always. Always know who you are and don't conform to what anybody else is looking for from you. And secondly, I would say treat every experience, every relationship, every interaction you have as a potential business
Mm,
opportunity, whether it's to increase your internal network, whether it's to help you in your professional career down the line. Continue to start building out your network as soon as possible, because we never know where those people are going to go in life. where they may, where their jobs may take them and how they may be able to help you in the future. I think that one thing I've been able to demonstrate to her is, despite the fact that I'm in the accounting world, the accounting people happen to know a lot about the medical field, right? So again, being able to utilize my connections just through A&M MDs is enabling her to have an immediate network of potential CEOs at hospitals here in the Houston area. So just reinforcing how important it is to keep communication current and always engage as if this is a person that could help you in the future. And last but not least, treat people how you would like to be treated, regardless of gender, ethnicity, whatever the case. Treat people how you would like to be treated.
Wonderful. Thank you. Wonderful words of advice, Gina. Really appreciate you taking the time and speaking with us today. It's been an absolute pleasure having you.
Thank you. I appreciate you asking me to join, and I look forward to seeing the finished product.